I wanna be the very best that no one ever was.
Bow, bow,
To
bow.
catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause. I will travel across the land, searching far and wide. It's Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all, it's you and me. I know it's my destiny, Pokemon. Oh, you're my best friend.
I know I
in a
am.
world
I know I'm your best friend. Thank you very much for just sliding that in there.
A heart so true, our courage will pull us through. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all.
Pokemon. Someone got into that a bit more than I expected.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem. Why is it me doing most of the singing there?
Well, you have the better singing voice. We'll just leave it at that.
Konnichiwa from the land of the rising sun. We are the Gaming Lovers.
Well, who knows what time of day it is? They might not be in the afternoon.
Well, people listen to this at whatever time of the day they want to.
Well,
So we can't really cater for that. Unless
exactly.
we're on the Truman Show, we're like, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night kind of thing.
Well, we'll just have to put a disclaimer saying only listen to this episode in the afternoon if you're Japanese. Welcome to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. I am Brendo.
I'm Jem.
And we are the Gaming Lovers. Today we're going to be talking all things Pokemon.
Yes.
The Pokemon phenomenon that has kept on rolling for well over 2 decades at this point.
Yes. Before we get to that, though, if you want to keep up to date with our adventures in Japan as we are over there at the moment, be sure to check out our social media pages. You can find all of the links at thegaminglovers.com.
Fantastic. I'll make sure I check up on our adventures.
Yes.
Oh, I'm experiencing the adventures. I don't need to. How foolish of me.
We've had so much fun, especially given that we are in the home of Pokemon, and having actual Pokemon centers that we can go visit.
Shopping centres exclusively for Pokemon merchandise.
Yes.
Could there be a nicer thing?
It's just like, I feel like I walk in and it's like, oh, the heavens open and there's a ray of light beaming down upon me. So much fun. We're having a blast.
And when we are due to come back from our holiday,
Yes.
Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are due to launch very soon. So we thought, what better time to take a quick retrospective of the entirety of the Pokemon video game franchise
just a
history.
quick squiz.
A quick squiz. Have
quick
you looked
squiz.
at how many games are on this list?
This has pretty much defined not just our childhood, but really our gaming lives. Lives? Lives.
Lives.
Those
Lives.
things.
Our one-ups.
Exactly. So for us especially, this has been a big part of our individual lives, but also as a couple too. I think we've bonded quite a bit over Pokemon as friends, as, boyfriend and girlfriend, as husband and wife. This has been a series that's just been part of...
Lifelong rivals. Yeah, a lot of the Pokemon mainline games come out in 2 versions at once, which is something that, from a business sense, I understand. From a consumer of video games, it frustrates me no end that I can't have everything in one of the games, because there's certain Pokemon that are exclusive to one version and they're not in the other.
Yes.
But it does mean that if I buy one and I buy you the other version as a gift, we can trade Pokemon, we can connect a bit more, we can share memories of the same story but with a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
There are advantages to it.
Absolutely. And as from a marketing point of view, it's genius.
Genius.
I can totally understand from a business standpoint, the decision to do that, and it's a clever way to make more money.
Yes,
So
and Nintendo have spread that to other series now as well, things like Fire Emblem and
yeah, that's true.
other series that have adopted the dual release, like Yokai Watch.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't like it. Stop.
Oh, that's fun. So let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Usually it's the best place, unless you're doing one of those things where it starts middle way into the narrative and you're like, how did we get here? Let's find out. But this is not one of those podcasts, unless you skip forward by accident, which I do occasionally with my clumsy fingers.
1996, when it all began. We were just sweet young kids. Well, most of us were. Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green were released in Japan.
Oh, that's where we are now. We should pick up a copy.
We could probably find them in Super Potato.
I'm sure we could.
Then it took a little while for them to be localized overseas. For us in Australia, we had it in 1998.
Yes, Pokemon Red and Blue launched in 1998, and that was when Pokemon was first airing here in Australia, likely in other Western countries as well. 96, I was oblivious, had no idea of what a Pokemon would have been because it wasn't out here. But 1998, my goodness, what an impact it made straight out of the gates.
Absolutely. Now, I never had the original, like, Red or Blue. My friends did. I collected the cards from the get-go and would occasionally catch the anime when I could. I think it aired on Sunday mornings here in Australia, and there was a strict no cartoons in the morning on Sundays or school days. Saturday was the only day that we were allowed to watch them in the morning because we had other commitments and we weren't allowed to get distracted. So for me, it was like a really rare special treat to be able to watch Pokemon in the morning. And I think that happened, like, I can think of, like, only a couple of times that happened.
Yeah, I was the same. I wasn't allowed to watch TV before school until that changed one day, which just so coincidentally happened to be the first ever Pokemon episode. So I was in from day one. And
Nice.
I also shared a few episodes ago that it was my first experience with video game piracy because I played Pokemon Blue on my computer. Did not understand it was illegal, did not understand it was emulated. I had no idea what was going on. And that was my dark introduction to Pokemon.
You're just an innocent boy getting corrupted.
It was an accident. So the Pokemon games, you go around, you recruit a team of 6 Pokemon from the world. They're out in the adventurous wilderness that you can battle them and collect them and then fight other people for money. That sounds like a nice way to make a living. And throughout the game, you fight 8 gym leaders. You get their badges to prove that you can qualify for the Indigo League. You fight the Elite Four. You fight the champion. Congratulations. Bravo. You've done it.
Yep.
It's the basic Pokemon experience. The Generation 1 starter Pokemon, Pikachu, was not a valid option
No, not for a while.
for Pokemon Red and Blue. You did, however, have Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charmander. Now, which of those 3 would you pick?
Probably Charmander. Char.
3 very iconic original starters.
Absolutely.
My first run through Pokemon Blue, I chose Mr. Squirtle
Squirtle.
because he looked cool.
And in the anime, his introduction with the glass.
He's just a brat troublemaker.
A lot of them are, to be honest. Then in the same year, 1998, again, Japan only, Pokemon Stadium. I didn't realise that it had its roots so early on.
Well, I did a little research on this, and it was actually a very slimmed down version of the Pokemon Stadium that we know. It was very bare bones, very limited in what it could do, but it did get a full release later on in the West, which had much more content.
Yes.
But again, never played it because it wasn't out here. It was only Japan.
Well, we played the version, obviously, that came out here.
Well, we'll get to that later.
Exactly. Then in 1999, Pokemon Pinball. I had this one. I had so many of the spin-offs.
On the
Seriously,
Game
especially
Boy.
on the Game Boys, because that was what I had. I'm pretty sure it was a Pokemon game my mum managed to get for free when she actually went. There's a Nintendo headquarters or like a distribution centre here in Melbourne, and she went there. I don't know how, but she managed to score me like a free game. Like it was a Pokemon one. I don't think it was Pinball. It might be coming up later on in this list,
Might
though.
be coming up in this list. Pokemon Pinball, I believe. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you had this. I did not.
Yeah.
I'm working off memory here. Did that have the fat cartridge that had a rumble
Yes.
capable butt on it? It was just a big blob on the end
Yeah,
of the
so
cartridge.
it had like a curved end there where you could fit like a AAA battery so that it would rumble as you played, which I got annoyed with that sometimes, so I just take the battery out and could just keep playing as normal.
Innovation. It's completely unwanted.
Sometimes it is.
Now,
Sometimes it's hokey and annoying.
I find this to be a blatant rip-off of Sonic Spinball. I mean, Nintendo... Sega does what Nintendo don't. Let's just put it that way.
I loved it though. Meowth plays quite a big part in this. You kind of collect, the little like gold nugget that kind of sits on Meowth's forehead.
Mm-hmm.
You're collecting those, and poor Meowth gets beaten up for them, I think, throughout the thing because you're hitting the pinball around.
Just harvesting them off live animals.
And you trigger different things because, again, you're still catching Pokemon, but you're using pinballs and you're shooting Pokeballs as the pinballs around the thing. So it's pretty much the same kind of thing that you used to with any pinball game, but just,
Launching
a Pokemon spin on it.
Pokeballs.
Yeah, so, and adding different challenges to that too. So
Fond memories?
yeah, I enjoyed playing that one. A lot of long car trips. We'd do a lot of road trips back in the day with my family. So having my Game Boy and playing that, I could play that for a few hours solid and not get car sick and not get bored. Yeah, a lot of good memories.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Also in 1999, easily one of my favourite games, Pokemon Snap.
A game you played again quite recently.
Yes.
From the start. Delete the save file,
Totally
start
did.
afresh.
My old save file from who knows how many years ago. Yeah, we started afresh and it was amazing. Like, I remembered some stuff quite clearly and there was other stuff I'm like, I had no memory of this. Like, trying to refresh myself on how to use it and get used to the mechanics. I think the thing that's frustrating me is because I've gotten so used to having an inverted y-axis from other games. Now going back to not being able to do that is really annoying. Trying to aim the camera, I'm like, no, it's so frustrating. So, but oh my goodness, playing it again, I'm just like, seriously, we need a new version of this. Come on, Nintendo,
I'm
please.
so astonished that they haven't. Now, the original Pokemon generation has 151 Pokemon, including Mew.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Snap fitted only
63.
63.
Mm-hmm.
Not 64 that they were aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, someone got cut, leaving it with just a mere 63. So you think of how many Pokemon there are now, how many options they would have?
Yep.
My goodness me, that is an unfulfilled destiny right there.
Yes.
Pokemon Snap, fantastic. I had it. There were actual, literal photo labs you could take your cartridge to, plug it in, and print out photos that you've captured in the game. Now that was next level at the time.
Oh my goodness.
Like the little photo booth photos you'd have with your friend, the little tiny...
Yeah, the sticker strips.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly the same with your Pokemon. So they were stuck everywhere in the late 90s.
Yes. Oh, you're bringing back memories, things that I had like completely forgotten about. Just you talking about that, I'm like, yes, I had that.
Yes.
And I had some sort of camera that could do like those instant sticker photo things, but it had Pokemon frames.
Oh, fantastic.
And I did not remember that until you brought that up. And now I want to know what happened to that. Again, 1999. Good year for Pokemon, my goodness.
It seems so.
My first proper Pokemon game on the Game Boy, Pokemon Yellow, where you could have Pikachu as your starter Pokemon. You could be Ash Ketchum, except not.
Oh, except not.
Well, you're not playing as Ash, you play as your own character.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but after the success of the anime and the manga, then they wanted a refined experience.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that a lot with the Pokemon games. Not only do they release two different versions of the same game to launch with,
Yep.
they quite often release a third enhanced version later down the road just to increase even more sales.
Mm-hmm. And it works. Pokemon has been successfully selling games for over 2 decades now, so no one can say that it hasn't been a successful business model in the slightest. So, but unfortunately, my Pokemon Yellow copy is who knows where.
Aww.
So that's one thing I am sad about because I was careful. I kept, and in good nick, I have all my other games and they're in storage and we've got them here. But that's the one thing missing.
You poor abandoned Pikachu.
Not abandoned. I lent him to a friend and never again.
There's your first mistake.
Yeah.
Now, even to this day, I still use the Pokemon trading cards as bookmarks when I read novels. I had quite a few of them, as did many people from our generation. And on the Game Boy Color, there was a Pokemon trading card game, video game.
Of course.
Did you have that one?
No, I didn't have that one. I think my mum probably saw that and laughed and thought it would be redundant, so I never got that one. I did have a lot of the cards and some of the rare collector ones as well. But we also, because we would go shopping at this market for general things, and
I
they
can
had
smell the fakery from here.
Yes, there was this stall that had a lot of like Asian goods that were clearly knockoffs, like all like the latest different toys and you know, brands and things from all the hit TV shows and the like, but just, you know, clearly unlicensed merchandise.
Oh, you'd get action figure 6-packs called the Marvelous Heroes, and it had Captain America looking man fighting side by side with a Batman knockoff.
Yep.
Fighting side by Shrek. Or something, you know, these days it happens. These things happen.
And it's so funny. We actually deliberately look in stores like that these days because it's just hilarious to find stuff like that. But yeah, because they were significantly cheaper, my mum would be like, oh, these will do. And so I almost like made a second collection of all the dodgy ones, and I'd have them side by side, comparing them to the genuine cards.
The cardboard was thinner and didn't have the same sheen to it. The printing was dimmer.
Sometimes it would be written maybe in like katakana, so some of them would actually still be like Japanese or something, and it's just so funny. So
these will do.
Yep, she's like going, yep, that'll shut you up. Here, have some knockoff cards.
Well, as the new millennium kicked in the year 2000, Pokemon Stadium made its way to the Nintendo 64 worldwide. Worldwide. And using the Nintendo 64 transfer pack, you could plug in your Game Boy Color cartridges for the red, blue, or yellow, transfer your Pokemon in, and fight using your team on your TV. And not only that, there were some cracking good mini games on Pokemon Stadium as well.
I loved the Sushi Train one. So
with the Lickitungs?
With all the Lickitungs. And there'd always be ones with like wasabi hidden in them, and so they would like cause you to like freak out because it's so hot, and then you would run out of time to eat food. But man, that mini game is so fun.
Another game that we gave a spin quite recently, purely for the mini games. There's not many of them, but every single one you're like, I don't think I remember this. And as soon as it started, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember this.
Yes.
It's the Rattatas on the treadmill. Yep.
And like the Magikarp jump, trying to hit the buzzer at the top and getting the timing just right. So there was like about maybe 9 mini games or so on there, and I honestly, when I played with my cousins, we would play those more than we did the battles in the stadium.
I 100% agree. We would do the mini games for hours on end, and we maybe did actual Pokemon battles, once or twice with friends, and that was it.
You do it a little bit, and then you get sick of it and go back to the mini games. You're like, we've had enough of this.
Especially for someone like me who didn't actually have any of the Game Boy cartridges. Only played mine illegally. I didn't have the ability to import any of my Pokemon, so I only had the basic Pokemon to choose from with generic move sets that I didn't actually like. They're not the moves that I would choose my Pokemon to have.
Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaminglovers.
The year 2000 was also another busy year for Pokemon because you had Pokemon Gold and Silver, the next generation, released. And I wonder which time of year, because usually I think they release kind of right before Christmas, traditionally.
Yep. Traditionally, yes. They launched in Australia and English territories in October.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the fourth quarter build up to Christmas.
Usually we're going to be using the Western release dates for these games. Pokemon Gold and Silver did come out in 1999 in the late end year, and it was fun in the early days of internet access for us Australians in school, seeing the rare picture of an elusive Pokemon from the next generation, and nobody knew what they were called. Do you remember Marill, the little blue ball Pokemon? Everyone nicknamed that Peekaboo at the time because nobody knew what the names were. So it was an exciting time for the second generation of Pokemon games.
Man, early internet days.
Whew. Now, the second generation Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, also for the Game Boy Color, introduced 100 new Pokemon, bringing it to 251. Genders were introduced for your Pokemon so they could breed if they were sort of similar, depending on the species they were. You had new types of Pokeballs, new areas. I personally am quite fond of the Johto region. And when you beat the entire Johto gym leaders and their Elite Four, you actually unlock the entire Kanto region in Pokemon Gold and Silver. So you actually feel like you're getting 2 games for 1. You get all the gym leaders, which are all super high levels in the Kanto region for an extra challenge. New Pokemon, old Pokemon to capture. Perfect. I love it.
There was Hey You Pikachu on the Nintendo 64, which also came out in 2000. And
I remember hearing this one. Do you remember hearing about this at the time?
no, this is one of the things on the list where I'm like, I don't remember the box, I don't remember the name. This is the kind of thing I probably begged for if I did see it, but I don't have.
Very rare game, and it did come with a microphone accessory, which I think bumped up the price here. Now, the Nintendo 64 games weren't cheap to begin with because they were cartridge-based, which cost them more to distribute them. But in this game, you could talk to Pikachu, who was on your screen. You could give him basic voice commands, and really, it was a one-trick pony. I never had it. Can't discuss much about it because I didn't have it, but it was quite a rare game here. So would you have played it at the time? No doubt.
Oh, absolutely, I would have. Probably would have been frustrated because I doubt it would have understood my Aussie accent. That's the thing with a lot of voice commands is that it needs to pick up on not just the words but the dialects and the differences between that. At least when the Kinect started adding voice commands to certain games, they catered for that. You know, they thought about that. But I don't think that would have been part of the process back in 2000. So, hey, maybe that's something we can look for while we're here in Japan.
Oh, Hey You Pikachu.
That sounds like if it's rare, but you never know. Although it might
We'd have to speak Japanese to Pikachu. Konnichiwa.
Hajimemashite. That would be really funny, though.
That could be a lot of fun.
Up next, Pokemon Puzzle League on the Nintendo 64, again in the year 2000. And that also had a kind of like a sister game, I guess, in the same vein, come out on the Game Boy Color, which was the Pokemon Puzzle Challenge.
Now, as we can already see, Pokemon Mania had hit.
Yes.
How many spin-off games have come out, and we're only 2 years into Pokemon's existence?
There's been so many. I'm not surprised that people got fed up with it because there's just so much. But I lapped it up as a kid, so I don't think I realized just how heavily
saturated
the
market had become.
Absolutely.
What was Pokemon Puzzle League and Puzzle Challenge like? Because I didn't have them.
Well, I only had Puzzle Challenge on the Game Boy Color. I think that was the game that my mum got for free from Nintendo.
Oh.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So it's kind of like Tetris and kind of like Bejeweled Blitz. So it's like linking out lots of colors. Maybe a smidgen of Puyo Puyo with a lot of color matching. And yeah, that was fun. I've always loved those kind of games, and I think part of me enjoys them because I can focus on that, but I can also process other things while I'm playing. Like, I really love to play puzzle games when I have something else that I need to sort out in my head or want to listen to something else, because it gives me something to do with my hands, because I don't have like ADD or anything, but like I still need to feel like I'm doing something productive while I'm also focusing or listening to something else. So, for example, like if I was listening to a podcast, I would be playing something like this at the same time, but it would help me focus on what I'm listening to.
Well, I'm just glad you're not actually playing something now while you're recording a podcast.
No. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to play. I didn't get to play the Nintendo 64 version, but I think they were very similar.
I think so too. Pokemon Stadium 2 got a launch on the Nintendo 64. Basically the same as Pokemon Stadium 1 for the 64. You battle using your own Pokemon if you want to, using the transfer pack, but it included both generations at this point. The Gold and Silver games Pokemon included as well. I never had Pokemon Stadium 2. I think there was no justification for buying another game based on the fact I didn't have any of the Game Boy cartridges. So I never had that one personally.
Yeah, I didn't have any of the Pokemon Stadium games. That was a let's go to my cousin's house so I can play their games kind of a thing. In 2001, there was Pokemon Crystal on the Game Boy Color, which is kind of like the enhanced edition of the previous two of Gold and Silver. So they've, like you mentioned before, that they will take previously released games and refine them and make it a more special edition. And that's what they did with Crystal. And I think this was the first time that you could be a boy or a girl as the protagonist.
Yep. Earlier games followed with the manga and the anime series where it's a boy on his adventure. They realised that some little girls out there were liking Pokemon as well. Who would have thought?
Yes.
Just like your good self.
Exactly.
Oh, I just realised we didn't actually discuss Generation 2 starters. Which one would you choose? Chikorita, Cyndaquil, or Totodile?
I remember Chikorita being a brat in the anime.
That's how you were governing it.
Yes. Cyndaquil was kind of cute. Although Totodile was pretty funny. Maybe him.
He sounds a bit like Donald Duck.
Yes.
Yeah, I went with Cyndaquil my first time through, so he's my little buddy. So then next up, Generation 3 starts with Pokemon Ruby and Pokemon Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance. Now, we hit another issue because, again, I still didn't have a Game Boy. I never had a Game Boy Advance, so at this point, my video game attention was starting to drift elsewhere. So at this point, I actually went dark on the Pokemon games and had no real knowledge about them at the time. So it was like a blank spot in my memory when I came back to the Pokemon series a bit later on.
Yeah. And it's interesting, they kind of skipped a year, or at least in the West, as far as releases go. We've gone from 2001 to 2003. But I'm the same. I didn't have an advance. My Game Boy Color worked just fine. And, you know, back then you didn't trade in old technology just because something new came out.
Oh,
you know,
it's forbidden. You never do that.
Exactly. And, you know, in today's culture, you know, as soon as a new model comes out, people will trade in their old phones for new ones or new computers and stuff because they always want to have the latest and the best and the fastest and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's fine. But if you have consoles that can only run certain games, I would never trade in consoles.
No.
That's just sad.
Yeah.
Well, the third generation introduced 135 new Pokemon, bringing our total to 386. It introduced abilities, which were like special things that your Pokemon had naturally. They weren't necessarily moves, but it might be this Pokemon is now faster if it rains and things like that. If the Pokemon is struck, there is a chance to paralyze the opponent if they have static electricity and things like that. It changed up the gameplay quite a bit because you could have different Pokemon with the same ability or the same Pokemon with different abilities. Perfect. Also included weather systems, which was new, like I said. New enemies in Team Aqua and Team Magma, depending on which version you got. And double battles, where two Pokemon are used at the same time on either side. Quite changed up the series a little bit.
Mixed up a little bit.
Yes. Now, you hadn't actually played it, but you do know the Pokemon because you've been a fan for so long that you've no doubt seen them. So, out of the third generation, would you pick Trico, Torchic, or Mudkip?
From those, Mudkip.
Mudkip? That's exactly what I would pick too. I do like Torchic. He's kind of cute too. Yeah, I like Torchic. The fact he evolves fully into like a giant karate man with enormous legs is just even better.
Also in 2003, another Pokemon Pinball edition for the Game Boy Advance with Ruby Sapphire this time, featuring so many Pokemon. Now, when they did iterations of that, they focused more on the newer generations with a couple of like the most famous from previous generations kind of sprinkled in for good measure. But a lot of these spin-off games were to kind of help, I guess, introduce and solidify the newest Pokemon that had been added to the Pokemon universe, I guess. So much the same formula.
Hey, did you ever want to watch Pokemon episodes on your TV through a video game console? Because it could happen back in 2003 with Pokemon Channel on the GameCube.
That's kind of revolutionary, and it's kind of a shame that it didn't take off because that's really what we have these days with all the apps that you can have on consoles. Everyone watches TV and movies on demand. And I know we use our different consoles. It's kind of whatever's on is what we'll use then to switch into Netflix or to the network for WWE or for Crunchyroll, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So
This was quite strange, though. It did come with a few episodes, but they did come on e-reader cards, so you had to actually still buy episodes in the shops on a rare style of storage for it to be scanned in and read on the console. So why wouldn't you just buy a VHS or a DVD?
yeah, that's just counterintuitive. If it had been internet reliant, although maybe at the time we didn't really have the technology for streaming back then.
Nope,
So
definitely not.
But an intriguing idea and one that could have worked maybe better in future consoles, I think.
Yeah, completely unnecessary. Let's move on.
But still kind of ahead of the curve, which I think is kind of cool, of trying to have a dedicated Pokemon channel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
2004, Pokemon Coliseum on the GameCube. So very much
Well,
like
you never
Stadium.
had a GameCube, did you? Let's make that clear.
No, but my cousins did, and I loved playing, was it Monkey Island? Monkey Ball.
Yeah, not Monkey Island. That's a point-and-click adventure on PC by LucasArts.
I knew it had monkey in it. The monkey with the balls where you roll them through obstacle
Super Monkey
courses.
Ball with
That one.
AI.
Yes, we
That's
played that a
Sega
lot.
game.
There you go. But they had a GameCube, and we would always use that for Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I've gotten used to using those controllers for any Smash Brother game.
Now, what's interesting about Pokemon Coliseum is that at first glance, it just looks like another edition of Pokemon Stadium, but for the third generation on the GameCube. However, it was in fact one of the first ever 3D Pokemon RPGs, because it had a story mode where shadow Pokemon were stolen from other trainers, and you could steal them back. The enemy team's name was Team Snag'em.
Oh, of course it was.
But yes, a lot of people didn't realise this game actually had a full story mode in it, where you could actually catch Pokemon and then transfer them the other way into your portable games. So there you go. I mean, look at the cover, for example. It doesn't look like it has a story.
No.
It just looks like another edition of Pokemon Stadium.
Yep.
Very strange. It does have a sequel as well coming up later in this list.
2004, we got Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. So the first time that we got the green over in the West, because the original obviously had green, but we got blue for some strange reason.
I still don't understand why that happened.
It's not that I dislike the colour blue. It's
No,
just
those foreign countries just don't appreciate the good Japanese greens. They're it's very specific greens.
Oh, goodness.
The first and certainly not the last generation of Pokemon games to get remade. The Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green is the remakes of the very first games, including all the abilities, and a lot of the Pokemon from later generations are hidden in certain areas that are harder to reach. So it's just a big homecoming for it. Again, I never had a Game Boy Advance, so I did not play this.
No, me either. Probably asked for one. 2005 saw Pokemon Dash come to the DS. The next model.
The next generation of handhelds has arrived.
Yes, and that was still it was very early in its life, because Game Boy Advance was still getting game releases, but the DS was just starting to revolutionize the handheld gaming experience with a touchscreen.
Yeah, and not only a touchscreen, but two screens. So people could use the verticality on the screens, like in this case, to have a racing game starring Pikachu. No, not my cup of tea. That's not what I'm here for Pokemon.
The box art's quite cute, though.
Well, it's Pikachu.
No, but the art style, I don't know, it reminds me of Scribblenauts a little. On the Game Boy Advance, the Pokemon Emerald version came out.
Which was the enhanced version of Ruby and Sapphire. Nothing too much to report there. Maybe if you want to revisit the third generation, hold off, because guess what? They're coming on this list further down with remakes. Never mind. Now, the sequel I was talking about with that Pokemon Coliseum game on the GameCube back in 2005, Pokemon XD, no relation to Disney XD, which is a channel that they have, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness has a lot of shadow Pokemon.
Ooh.
And again, it's a full story with Pokemon that you can recapture from bad guys that have been transformed, brainwashed into being shadow Pokemon. I hired this from the video store. I never actually owned it, but I did enjoy it.
Well, good. I don't know. That's one of those ones I'm like, I don't think it was ever even on my radar. And I might have at that stage because I think I was just wrapping up high school around that time. Probably phased out a little bit of my Pokemon stage. And there was a couple of years where it was like after our childhood, it had become nerdy to still be into Pokemon. And now it's back in vogue again.
I was going to agree with you until you said that. Pokemon's never been new. But I do agree. Our timelines do line up because, like we said, in this timeline, we're at 2005 now, but a few years before that, I'd hit that end of high school realm because I'm a few years older than you. And that's why I dropped off the Pokemon radar as well. But at this point, I was starting to get my feet wet again a little bit.
Then in 2006 on the DS, Pokemon Trozy. Zay?
Troze? I don't know. It's a style of puzzle game, but I never played it. Don't know how it's pronounced. I've never even heard of Troze before Pokemon showed up and took its branding, but interesting.
It does look interesting. I'm really... they almost look like emojis, Pokemon emojis.
I'm pretty sure you stack them and spin them and rotate them until they all line up and they pop. Just like your standard matching colour things, but with Pokemon heads.
I want to play it.
We'll track you down a copy. The DS is actually region free, so I can buy you a copy in Japan.
All right, sounds good. So we'll add that to our list of the Hey Pikachu, or Hey You Pikachu, and then Pokemon Trozy. We're going to be spending so much money here in Japan. Okay, 2006... was the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team. Gosh, that is a long title. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. They were on different consoles. So one was on the Game Boy Advance and one was on the DS.
That's right. Trying to capture both markets. A new initiative for the Pokemon game series. They're like dungeon crawlers, but you are actually playing as a Pokemon and befriending other Pokemon to join your team. It's grid-based. You do a quiz at the start of the game, and however you answer, it will say, okay, you are a Squirtle, based off your answers, and then you choose yes or no if you want to accept it or not. I had one in a later generation, one of those games. Quite enjoyed the gameplay, although it was a bit simple.
I think because it's marketed towards little kids, though, they've got to keep it simple.
How dare you?
Hey, I'm not saying that little kids are the ones that enjoy it, but it is marketed towards them. Big difference. 2006 also saw Pokemon Ranger on the DS come out.
Now, this is a game that I had the guidebook for because I bought it cheap for $2 on a sale. Never actually owned the game, but I had a book full of Pokemon artwork that I loved. And in this game, you actually use the touchscreen to draw like little lassos around wild Pokemon to keep them from going crazy. You are a Pokemon ranger in charge of a Pokemon park. You're not there to capture them. You're just there to calm them down, basically.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side. And you could be featured in the next podcast.
And now we're up to the fourth generation of Pokemon. In 2007, Diamond and Pearl on the DS came out. Starting to look a bit more familiar again, I think, back on my radar.
Yes, this is when I jumped back on board with Pokemon Diamond and thought, hey, I haven't played Pokemon in a while. And there's all these new Pokemon I haven't ever seen because I missed the third generation completely. And all the new ones from the fourth generation, an entire new 107 added, bringing a total of Pokemon to 493.
Gosh.
Now, around this time, I had my eye on a lovely lady by the name of Jem and thought, you know what? I have an idea. And I decided to buy you a gift.
Yes, for Christmas. My very first DS. It was pink. You trolled me hard, though, that Christmas because you gave me an empty box. And I was like, going, no, you didn't. And then I opened the box. I'm like, And you didn't.
Yep. She
jerk.
opens the present. There's my Nintendo DS box. And you're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? This can't be real. And then you open the box and it had nothing in it. Or it had
Maybe lollies in it.
something that was not a DS.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there going, that was funny. And then about 3 presents later, you open another present. The same size, coincidentally.
Mm-hmm.
And what's in there? A Nintendo DS box. But wait a second, this one's pink. And you open it up, and sure enough, I bought you a Nintendo DS.
That was before we were even dating.
Correct.
So that was quite a big gift for back then.
Correct. I wasn't earning much money then either.
No. And that one I think came with the Nintendogs.
Mm-hmm.
And
One of your first games?
yes, and I believe I created my dog that we had at the time, Carla. She was a German Shepherd, and she didn't live much longer past that year, so I had like a digital version of her after that.
Oh, that's so sweet. So that was definitely a mega gift that I bought you, and I did also get you Pokemon Pearl later on, so you could actually start enjoying Pokemon again as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 4th generation starters, which one would you choose out of these 3 Pokemon? Turtwig, Chimchar, or Piplup?
Piplup.
Mm-hmm.
Piplup's so cute.
That is exactly the type of Pokemon I am like. That's a gem Pokemon right
So
there.
many of them end up being the water ones. But then I do love the water.
And I went with Chimchar because he's badass. And I like monkeys.
Now it's time for another shift in consoles.
Mm-hmm.
On the Wii, Pokemon Battle Revolution. That sounds like a dance game.
That's only because of the Dance Dance Revolution
Yeah,
title.
probably.
Yes, I had this one as well because I was freshly back on the system with the DS and Pokemon Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
This game was, again, basically the Pokemon Stadium for the 4th generation on the Nintendo Wii. It could all communicate infrared sort of wirelessly, which helped. But unfortunately, it didn't include any of the extra fun stuff like a mini games mode or things like that. So it really was purely just a combat game with your new generations of Pokemon. A bit disappointing.
Yeah, so much potential too with the Wii. They could have made, a classic. Given that they've got like the motion controls and stuff like that too, you could have been pretending to throw in the Pokeball. You could have done so many fun mini games in that setting.
Yeah.
There's still potential for it with the Switch.
Who knows what the Switch will bring?
In 2008, Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia on the
Another
DS.
Pokemon Ranger game. Again, I didn't play it. I didn't even buy the guidebook for this one, unfortunately. But yeah, same sort of gameplay. You're the Pokemon Ranger with a new cast of characters, new unique gameplay compared to the other Pokemon games. There really is a bit of something for everyone in this entire library of titles.
Absolutely. So even if you don't like the classic Pokemon games, there are other styles, so you can still enjoy Pokemon without playing the traditional, I guess, games. 2008, there was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time or Explorers of Darkness.
Explorers of Darkness, that's the one I had on the DS. Yeah, thought I'd try something different in the Pokemon world and decided to try one of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. I liked it. I think I was a Chimchar in that one as well. So, good fun.
Also on the DS, Pokemon Platinum, which was, again, the refined version,
Enhanced version
of Pearl and Diamond.
You've already bought the other 2. Here's a 3rd one to buy that's better. Now you better buy it.
With a creepy-looking centipede-ish Pokemon on the cover. Do you know the name of that one?
It's either, I don't know if it's pronunciation, it's either Girantira or Gyrantira. It's like a giant thing. That's actually its ghost form. It has different forms in Pokemon Platinum.
Well, it looks creepy. It looks like one of the boss fights in Sword Art Online.
It really does too.
2009, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky on the DS.
They decided to extend their 3rd version to the Mystery Dungeon versions as well. So if you enjoyed Time and Darkness, well, you better buy the other version because it's better. It's better.
It's new. Give us money. Then on the Wii, we had WiiWare, Pokemon Rumble.
Now, WiiWare were like little almost miniature games that were released on the Wii that you could buy using your Nintendo points, which is just a fancier way of saying your real money.
Yes.
Microsoft did the same thing of that too with the 360 and the...
Having points instead of just
So you don't actually know what the financial value of the game you're buying is because you use money to buy points and then you just buy games using points. So you don't actually know how much you're spending on things unless you do the math.
Yeah, unless you track it properly.
Yeah, so Pokemon Rumble had, they looked like little toys, and it was basically just like a miniature brawler sort of mini combat.
A lot of button mashing.
Yeah, wasn't much.
2010, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver out on the DS.
Hot damn! My favourite Pokemon game of all time.
Really?
This is the one that I not only enjoyed playing, but I played a Nuzlocke run through Pokemon Heart Gold.
Explain to us, what is Nuzlocke?
Well, somebody had the great idea of making their own restrictions in the game to make a Pokemon game more challenging and more emotionally investing. Investable.
One of those words.
So what they do is you're only allowed to capture one Pokemon for each area. Whatever the first one is that you haven't caught before, that's the only one you're allowed to catch. So what that does is makes you have a mismatched team, and B, it means you're using Pokemon that you would never even give a second look at previously. If you caught a Zubat, guess what? You're using the Zubat. Mm-hmm. If you caught a Caterpie, well, that's your main heavy hitter so
Rattata.
far. Things that you would normally go, cool, I'll catch it and stick it in the PC and never touch it again. Mm-hmm. Now, the catch is, if a Pokemon gets knocked out, you can never use it again.
Yep, you treat it like it's dead.
So you slowly accumulate a small army because you have only one per area, like we said, and if you lose one, he's dead. No using it. To make things even worse, it is recommended that you actually nickname every Pokemon. So it's not just Caterpie. Mm-hmm. It's your buddy Francis, who you have nicknamed. And when Francis grows into a Butterfree, you're so proud of Francis, and he can help you in almost every situation until you fight a gym leader and Francis dies. Heartbreaking. So with Pokemon Heart Gold, I decided to not only play through Heart Gold with those rules, but play through and document in a almost fan fiction-esque method my entire journey.
Yes.
I beat Pokemon Heart Gold. I beat the Elite Four, I beat the Champion, and only one of my 6 that I entered the Elite Four with survived. My main 6 Pokemon, 5 of them died, and I was left alone, myself and my Crobat Shortsight. Best friends forever. BFFs. We will never forget those that fell for our victory. Never forget those that sacrificed themselves for our glory. It was fantastic and put so much more pressure on strategy and things like that.
I love that people can come up with creative ways to make a game more challenging that isn't actually built into the system, but they find their own challenges that they self-impose. And, you know, it adds another level to it and potentially replay value, I guess, if you are considering playing a Pokemon game or want to revisit some old ones, maybe try doing a Nuzlocke run and documenting it. And hey, if you write up what happens, send it to us. We'd love to know. thegaminglovers.com. Now, here is a blast from the past. 2010, Pokepark on the Wii, Pikachu's Adventure.
Oh my gosh, we hired this game like 4 times.
I think the first time we hired it, I was under the weather. And you hired it to cheer me up. You thought it would just be such a random thing. And we fell in love with it.
It's a game where you play as Pikachu in the Poképark, which is... there was a real Pokemon theme park in Japan for a while, which unfortunately closed down.
Yeah, before we could get here.
But Pokemon Poképark, it had real-time battles, which were completely different for the Pokemon universe. You actually had to use timing and button presses to actually avoid attacks and hit that Charizard that's trying to get you. And each area had its own sort of theming, and there was different, just like a real theme park. And there was, of course, some big disaster going on. Oh no, we got to save the Poképark. But it was just such a cutesy game, rated for everyone. enjoy it while you're under the weather.
Lots of little mini games and fetch quests, basically. So it's very simple in premise. But yeah, we just had a lot of fun playing, and I think there was lots of, oh, look at this moments.
Well, being a first-party Nintendo game, they were not going to be any cheaper than they launched at, so that's the reason why we hired it a few times, and I was tempted to purchase it quite a few times.
I'm sure you were. Then in 2010, Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs on the DS.
Another Ranger game where you play as a Guardian of all things Pokemon. Again, never played the series, but there was successful enough to warrant a few sequels, so it must have done some sales.
Well, it hasn't been heard of since this Guardian Signs.
Well, the previous games must have sold well enough to get a few sequels, but this one obviously did not.
Yes. Who knows, we might see it again down the road, but that's the last one in that spin-off series to date. 2011, Pokemon Black and White on the DS.
Another game where we bought one each.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which one you had?
It
don't matter if you're black or white.
Actually, this is bad. I'm not sure which one I had. I'm looking at the covers going,
Well, it's confusing because Pokemon Black has a
black base,
black
but a white
background
Pokemon.
with a white Pokemon, and the white has a black Pokemon on a white background. So I don't even know which one I had. That's
It's
why I was
very
asking
confusing.
you. It was a leading question. I had no idea which one I had.
I probably had black, actually. I think I liked the look of the white Pokemon. I'm not even sure what the name is. Good grief.
Reshiram or something like that.
You see, I'm so
Launch
good
of
at
the
remembering those.
5th generation of Pokemon. We now have another 156 new Pokemon adding the team to bring our total to 649. I hope you're not OCD about numbers because ever since the first generation, it's been all over the place with their total numbers. This introduced triple battles, which were the first time ever for those. New enemies, new places, new settings, weather and time systems are now displayed on the bottom screen. Being a DS game, it has the bottom screen. Pokemon animate constantly in the fight instead of just being a fixed sprite.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, very cool. Now, the big question. Which would you pick out of the Generation 5 starters? Snivy, Tepig, or Oshawott?
I love Oshawott. We have a plushie of Oshawott. See, I keep choosing the water Pokemon.
So you've picked Totodile, Mudkip, Piplup, and Oshawott. That's 4 straight water Pokemon.
I did pick
I'll
Charmander
just
at the
start
first.
calling you Misty.
I don't mind. I loved Misty. And I don't like bugs, so it's very appropriate. In 2011, Pokemon Rumble Blast out on the 3DS.
An actual official launch of the game that they had that little WiiWare sample of on the 3DS. The same sort of art
With the
style. They all
toys.
look a little big-headed chibi style of their designs.
Chibis.
They look a little chibi.
We love chibis.
Yeah, another fast-paced sort of combat-y sort of game. Very different from your turn-based combat in most of the normal Pokemon games.
2012, Pokepark 2 Wonders Beyond on the Wii.
Did we ever hire this or buy this? We didn't buy it. I wanted to buy it so many times.
If we did, we hired it. I thought we only played the first one, but I
thought we
could
did
be
too.
wrong.
Yeah.
I could be forgetting incorrectly.
I thought we did too. I was hoping that Pokepark 2 would be cheaper because it looked like a fun game.
In 2012, Pokemon Conquest on the DS. Now, I know you have this one.
I definitely had this one. It accompanied us in our flights to and from America in 2013 when I played it. It was my game for the holidays. For the travel, I decided, although I was head over heels in love with my PlayStation Vita at the time, I thought my DS is being ignored. I should buy something to play on this holiday. And Pokemon Conquest was my choice. Recommended from a pen pal that I made. And, I didn't like it as much as I'd hoped. The grid-based combat, which is very Fire Emblem-ish, Fire Emblem-ish,
Yes.
It's hard to say emblem-ish. There you go, that one worked. The story was kind of boring. It actually is like a previous game series like Nobunaga's Ambition or something, very classic, using real-world characters from Japanese history. It was using that framework of that game series, but with a Pokemon coat of paint. Sort of like how Persona Q is an Etrian Odyssey game with a Persona coat of paint.
True.
So just like that. I had never played any of that series. It didn't engage me as much as I'd hoped it would, although the art design and the characters and their Pokemon choice is kind of cool.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo and Jem. That's BRENDOJEM.
2012 was Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, which is kind of rare to have like actual numbered sequels like that. They've not really done that.
Instead of the traditional third enhanced version, they decided to ditch that idea this generation and give actual sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange. It was quite jarring at the time to see a Pokemon title with a 2 in front of it.
Or after it.
Yes, that one.
But it meant that they could also do 2 games instead of the one refined one. So, 2013, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity on the 3DS.
Gates to Infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, they only released one version of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, so we must be making progress.
Mm-hmm. Then, on the Wii U eShop, the Wii U we've hit now, Pokemon Rumble U.
Again.
So many ones with just adding a U on the end of the names.
Well, that's how they named things, those wacky Nintendoites. They did love their U's. Very strange naming convention, I think.
Yeah.
I never played any of the Pokemon Rumble games, so I don't have too much to say, but it's just another edition of the same art style, same combat, etc., etc.
2013, Pokemon X and Y on the 3DS. Now, I'm pretty sure I had X and you had Y.
Why do you say that?
Was it because of the chromosomes?
That would make sense. I believe that actually might be our reasoning why I got the Y one. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Only 72 new Pokemon for this generation as we enter Generation 6.
All right, so how many are we up to now?
721. A nice even number. And in this generation, we introduced the Fairy type, which is the first introduction of a new type since Generation 2. We had 15 types to begin with. We introduced Steel and... what did we introduce? Steel. Was that it?
Possibly.
And Dark. I knew there was 2. Steel and Dark got introduced in Generation 2. Fairy got introduced into Generation 6. New abilities, new training methods, and yeah.
I think they also went and revamped some of the Generation 1 Pokemon and added new classes to them as some of these new things were added to the game. So with Fairy, I think things like Clefairy were then reclassified Pokemon.
Yeah, which makes it difficult when you see a Pokemon, you're like, oh, I know exactly what your weaknesses are. Oh, you've changed types. That's a bit strange. Jigglypuff, you're Fairy type now. What's going on? So, yes.
In 2014...
Wait.
Sorry.
How dare you try and jump the gun? What would you choose? Chespin, the grass type, Fennekin, the fire type, or Froakie?
Probably Fennekin from those ones.
You like the look of Fennekin and its giant fire ears?
It reminds me of the little Fennecs that would run around in Dragon Age Inquisition, the poor little suckers that usually would die because they'd run right into the middle of a fight between me and a bear.
And you flamed them, and then they became Fennekins. I was a fan of Chespin, personally, because he looks like a little gangster with his little hood on. Just out of curiosity, what was the Japanese pronunciation for the Fennekin Pokemon?
You're going to make us change from clean to explicit.
No, it's just a Japanese name for it.
Foco.
Just a little quicker. You were a little slow there.
Foco.
Let's move on.
You brat.
You troublemaker.
All right, 2014. Pokemon Battle Troze 3DS. After an 8-year break.
Look at that. They've brought it back. Another game you didn't even know existed but would probably play to death if you had it.
It's on the 3DS, which means I could play it on my 2DS.
You could probably download it from the eShop.
Oh.
Have a snoop.
I could probably find it cheaper in person, I think.
Well, it depends if it's available. It might just be a digital title. There's no box art.
Oh, I can go digging through the bargain bins. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, man, I see this everywhere. Pokemon Art Academy on the 3DS.
The reason you see it everywhere is probably because it did not sell very well.
Mm-hmm.
But as a kid,
I
my
would have loved...
goodness,
Oh, my goodness. I would have been all over that
learning
in
how
primary
to
school.
draw every Pokemon would be my dream.
I used
back
to
in the day.
get given VHS cassette tapes of, like, things from, like, Crayola of how to draw. And I would watch and I would rewind and watch again.
Yeah,
to
both
keep
you
learning.
and I were both quite arts-based as children and teenagers, and we would have both greatly enjoyed a guide on how to interactively draw Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. A shame that we outgrew this and it came out way too late
Oh,
for
there's
us.
no such thing. You can still enjoy it. I'll add it to your Christmas list.
No. But if we ever had a kid that loved to draw, that would be the kind of thing I would happily get for them.
Sounds great.
All right, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire.
Here we are with our third generation of Pokemon remakes. So that means surely Pokemon Hyper Diamond and Superbo Pearl is on the horizon.
Possibly. 2015 Pokemon Shuffle. Do the shuffle. That came out on 3DS and also Android and iOS.
Well, the world domination will not stop anytime soon if they're on the phones as well.
It's a free-to-play take on the Pokemon Battle Troze. How did I not know this? I need to download it now.
You literally pulled out your phone mid-podcast
Yes.
onto the App Store.
Yes.
Okay, searching for Pokemon Troze.
Pokemon
Shuffle. Get.
Yep.
What about Meet Trevor, our Magikarp? What is that? What's the Magikarp?
I don't know. Say hi to the weirdest Pokemon game ever. Magikarp is a famously terrible Pokemon until it evolves into Gyarados. Most players who have encountered Magikarp will be more familiar with its original form, a useless, flapping disappointment.
Sounds
Aw.
like me after high school.
But then you evolved into the mighty Gyarados.
Yeah.
And yet, it's because of its undeniable futility that Magikarp is so loved, adored enough for the Pokemon Company to build a whole game around it. Your task? Raise and train a string of Magikarps to become the highest jumpers in the land. Our current one is called Trevor. Here's why we're still playing it.
Pokemon Magikarp Jump. Are you going to download that one as well? Do it. Okay. Have we taken our side topic now? Can we move back to where we were, please?
I'm going to play me some Pokemon Shuffle.
Oh my, can we please finish the podcast before we start?
Okay.
Add
Hurry
it
up.
to your gaming goals.
Okay. Then we have Pokemon Rumble World on 3DS. Then we have Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon on 3DS. Then we have Pokemon
Wait, Pokemon
Picross...
Mystery Dungeon what? Nothing.
Super Mystery Dungeon.
Super
that's all
Mystery
it's-
Dungeon. Okay, sorry.
Then Pokemon Picross on the 3DS. Whoop-de-doo. Then...
Stop. Listen, we need to actually, although I hadn't actually played any of those and we didn't actually have much information to share with those, let's actually hit the brakes a little bit now because we've got a lot of Pokemon games coming out that we have played.
There is Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Right, which launched the... What generation are we up to?
7th?
Correct.
Good
The
grief.
7th generation of Pokemon, introducing 81 new Pokemon. Now, you've been waiting for a nice even number. Here it is, bringing the total to 802.
Well, it's still technically an even number, I guess, but not as clean.
New moves. We're in the Alola region this time, which is based on Hawaii. The villainous Team Skull, which is just a band of hoodlums. Get off my lawn! That's my... 3D models for the characters. You can choose your skin tone and everything else when you create a character, male or female, doesn't matter. It's pretty good. I started Pokemon Moon when we were in Hawaii for our holiday last year. So I decided to hold off starting it until I was in the Aloha region and the Alola region at the same time. Isn't that fun?
You played like all of 10 minutes of that game.
Well, I did restart it again early this year and then played it properly and still got bored of it. So Pokemon is not my jam anymore, it seems, unfortunately. But which would you choose? Rowlet with his little leaf bow tie, Litten, or Populo, the seal?
Actually, Rowlet looks really cute.
His little bow tie.
He looks cuddly too.
He gets like cool fringe hair when he gets older. He looks like Miles Edgeworth.
And I'm allergic to cats, so.
I chose the cat because he evolves into a pro wrestler.
Ah, that's right. I knew there was one. Oh, gosh.
Now, by this point, I have Pokemon Moon, but you have no interest in Pokemon Sun. You've off the Pokemon train again?
A little bit, yeah. Maybe until Pokemon Let's Go comes out. I think that might rejuvenate that style of Pokemon game. I'm not off Pokemon, just those style of games, I think.
Okay. Well, the year after, 2017, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I believe are basically enhanced pseudo-sequel-ish. It's hard to find where the line is with those ones. Some people find them to be follow-on. Some of them just seem to be the enhanced versions, as we've seen.
With all the DLC kind of feel.
Exactly. And the one that you've really wanted on the 3DS, the game you've been clamouring for years, came out this year. Detective Pikachu.
Yay.
Now, what is your beef with Detective Pikachu?
It's stupid. Oh, hey, the reviews agree with me. But I had a hunch just as soon as I saw the trailer, like, this is a bad idea.
Well, get excited because there's also a movie of it.
Yay. Well, hey, if it's as bad as the game, then it's faithful to the source.
That's awkward. That's awkward.
Yeah, I don't think being voiced by Deadpool is going to save Pikachu.
Maybe it would be voiced by someone like the Green Lantern instead.
I don't know.
Would that help?
It might be worse.
Okie dokie. Well, we did also skip over Pokken Tournament, which was on the Wii U, which was a fighting game. At long last, I designed a fighting game back in 1999 that would be like a Street Fighter style of game for Pokemon. Nobody took me seriously. And then here we are, like 20 years later, they make one. I should have
gotten it patented.
Should have sold it to Nintendo. But the Nintendo Switch era that we live in now, the worldwide release of Pokken Tekken... Oh, I can't say... I keep trying to say Tekken. Pokken Tournament DX came out last year worldwide. And then this year, the Switch has had 2 other games due on its radar as well.
Well, we had Pokemon Quest, which we downloaded pretty much straight away. And that is also available on smartphones.
You've beaten Mewtwo.
Yes, and now I am stuck in the most difficult section, my goodness, of trying to... Because I'm trying to get all the Pokemon, but I need rare ingredients to then lure the rarest Pokemon with my little cooking pot. But I have to beat this really difficult section first.
You always make it sound so sinister.
It is. It does sound a little sinister, doesn't it? And then we've got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee.
Very close to release.
Not long now. With the little Pokeball controller as well that you can play with. And it's also going to be working in tandem with Pokemon Go. And the reason Pokemon Go wasn't really on the list is because it wasn't made by the Pokemon company, the Android, like the phone game. It might be tied with it now.
Magikarp Special Jump, whatever it's called, wasn't on the list either. I'm very disappointed of all these games falling between the cracks.
There's a few that have licensed the rights to Pokemon, but it's kind of like, I guess, the Disneyland in Japan where it's Disney, but it's not actually owned by Disney. It's just licensed out, which is kind of interesting.
And finally, next year we'll be getting its first Generation 8 Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch. It is untitled at the moment. It is due late next year. Any ideas on what sort of direction they will take that in?
Probably more Pokemon.
So bring it to a nice even 871.
I'm hoping that they use some different colours, maybe some purples. That would be nice. It's impossible to kind of predict the direction they want to take, but I don't imagine they're going to stray far from the formula that they've used for 2 decades, So it's going to sell regardless of what they do.
Well, hopefully they take notice that Australia is phenomenal and release the game in an Australian setting. They've just done a New York one. They've done a a Hawaii one. They've left Japan. Obviously, they're touring the world. Where better to set it than Australia? Imagine the Pokemon. In fact, there was a artist, Paul Robinson, a Geelong-based artist, which is a small city on the outskirts of Melbourne, who designed 150 Australian Pokemon.
Well, we already had Kangaskhan.
Including such things as Guana and Didgeridoo. And if you like Australia and you like our culture, well, guess what? We've got the Pokemon for you.
Dare I ask?
Such things like Bogan and Dunny, which is a giant outhouse.
Yes, slang for toilet.
What about Chico, which evolves into Dimmy?
Okay, for those who don't know what that is, Chico is like what, a giant spring roll?
Mm-hmm.
And a Dimmy, dim sim.
No, but seriously, you have to see some of these. They are phenomenal.
We should share some of these pictures on our social media page, I think.
See,
everyone needs to see these because they're hilarious.
Boomer, Ranger, and then Kaboomerang.
There's even like ones with Cadbury chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. All right, we will definitely post those up on our social media pages as well, so be sure to check those out. Thegaminglovers.com if you want to find the links to our Facebook and Twitter pages and everything else. It has been so much fun reflecting on the years of Pokemon.
Games that we remembered fondly, games we had forgotten about, and games we didn't even know existed.
All in the same family.
This has been fun.
It has been. Now let's go to the Pokemon Center because I really want to go buy more stuff.
We are going to be bringing back so many plushies, especially the little Ditto plushies. Ditto Pokemon are the best Pokemon.
They are hilariously cute. Well, until next time, everyone.
Share with us your favourite Pokemon.
Yes, let us know. You can hit us up at thegaminglovers.com.
I have a strange affection for Corfish. He's one of my favourites. Corfish.
Chansey is one of my favourites. I love a lot of the fairy types. Jigglypuff is hilarious as well. I just draw on your face while you're sleeping.
No, don't do it.
Thanks again for joining us here at the Gaming Lovers Podcast. We'll catch you next time.
Tune in next week to see the new adventures of the Pokemon world and the Gaming Lovers.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Bayonara.
Hey.
That could be a Pokemon.
Could be. Bayonara.
Chowski. That could also be a Pokemon. Chowski.
Chowski. Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.